Hi, I'm Brigham Larson with Brigham Larson Pianos, and this is the third of the weekly series of broadcasts that I do here at the piano shop. If you haven't seen either of the first two broadcasts, basically what I do, and I've been doing it for years. I've got a team of shop guys that I need to keep up to date, keep them trained, make sure that they're working on the projects in the right way that I want them to be working on them. So we've been doing for years. We've been doing this this early morning training, but we recently decided why not do a broadcast. And so some of it's conversational with you, the viewer. Some of it's just doing shop work. This is not staged at all, as my wife said, just barely. That if we tried to stage things and make it, you know, set it up and make everything, you know, like a PTG presentation or something like that, it would never happen, especially not on a weekly basis. We just don't have time for that. So if you want to come join us, then let's do some shop work. Today, we're going to be working on this piano. This is a, I can't remember the year. I don't know if it's written down. It's an old Waltham that we're rebuilding for a lady. Probably 1905-ish, kind of right in there. She wanted us to rebuild it because it's sentimental, and it has been in the family for 4 generations. So we're completely redoing it. We're to the step now where we are ready to restring. Restringing is one of those things that I do occasionally. It's not something that I'm doing every day, but it's actually really fun. I really enjoy it. I get into the rhythm. I listen to, you know, the radio or whatever, and I just get into it. And once I've done a couple, I kind of am reminded of a few things that I forgot since the previous time, and it just gets going, and I like to watch the progress as it comes along. The guy that I'm actually going to have restring this. And restringing, by the way, is not terribly difficult once you've done it once and you've done it correctly, and you learn a rhythm, you learn a pattern, you learn the things to do, and you learn to do them consistently from one note to the next. It's actually pretty easy and hard to mess it up. So I'm going to be working with my guys today, teaching them about restringing, and we'll use this piano as I got some models that I made a year or so ago that maybe we'll do some practices on. So so let's get this piano on its back. Actually, before we do that, let's look at it just to kind of give you a come on over here, guys. So a few things that have been done already on this piano to get it ready for restringing. He's cleaned it pretty thoroughly, and then he's, oh, someone's knocking. I guess everybody doesn't have a key to the shop, and the shop's not open at
6 a.m.
6 a.m. Yeah. So he's cleaned it very thoroughly. He's even blasted the all of this key bed and everything. He took the key bed off and took the key bed has you see these little shims here? A lot of those are, he even took measurements and wrote exactly, because those shims are used to give the key bed a very precise height, and keep it level and everything. So I took all of this off. He sprayed it all with the soda blasted it all to clean it all up, make it look nice. Polished all these key pins. Replaced this key bed felt. Of course, you only glue it for whatever reason on this side. I think I'm not sure how much of it has to do with tradition and how much of it has to do with that it actually helps reduce noise as the key comes back, and you know, as you play it, the back comes up, and then when it comes back down, it maybe reduces noise. I'm not really sure. Let's see. Of course, there was a lot of work on the bridge. It wasn't a trashed bridge by any means, but it just needed a little bit of CA glue to kind of fill in some of the hairline cracks in here. So he's done that. A lot of these, all these kinds of things are polished just so that they, you know, look nice. And new felt along here that Don's glued on there. This bar here is to a specific height, right, Don?
Yeah.
Everything was measured exactly how far it was off the plate at various locations. And then when he had all of this off so that he could take it to the buffing wheel and buff it out, make it look nice, when you put it back on, obviously these bolts can be in any number of, you know, depths. So you just return the bolts to where they were before, so that the cable bar has the same measurement as it did before. And finally, and this one is the most important of all of the work that he did, is the first thing he did is he used these tuning pins. These are all, you can see they've got some wear on them, where Don has been manipulating them. These are from the same set of pins that which is right here. All these tuning pins, which by the way, I don't think it's a great idea to touch the tuning pins. You don't want to get oil from your fingers. On the threads, you can touch it there. I'm not sure. Some people wear gloves when they restring. And actually, I think when we do this piano, when you do this piano, like when you start really getting going on the restringing, I think it'd be a good idea to wear those rubber gloves just to avoid any kind of oils from your fingers getting on the tuning pins, particularly the threads and the strings themselves. So this is the most important thing to do. Use these tuning pins that come from the same set as samples to find exactly which of all of these drill bits, and all these drill bits are slightly different. Tuning pins, they come in different sizes, and all these drill bits and little spoon reamer bits, they come in slightly different sizes, and they're so slight that the difference is you can make a difference. For example, how long you stay in the hole, how deep you go on the hole. So eventually, what Don did, and he used various, and I think that's what these are. Mm-hmm. It was samples that he used. Like he'd try it here, put a tuning pin, drive the tuning pin in. So we've got to have the tuning pin in the same depth. We've got to have it the drill bit, the same amount of time in each hole. And so basically, it was a series of experimentation, different drill bits, different lengths, different distances, all of these things, in order to find just the right torque with these specific pins. Is that a good summary, Don?
Right.
What you got there? Okay. And by the way, guys, if you have any questions, if I'm going over something, just because we're doing this broadcast here, doesn't mean you can't. Yeah. Feel free to.
Quite the opposite.
Yeah.
Let's go back.
Yeah, absolutely. Feel free to ask any questions, because if you're thinking it, and if there's a good chance that someone watching on the broadcast is probably thinking it too.
What do you think about the situation in the Middle East?
Yeah, exactly. Right. Let's talk about that. Let's talk about the Middle East. Perfect. Okay, so what this is a torque wrench that has this specific adapter for tuning pins, and so this is what Don used to give the right torque. So once he did a few, he found, kind of narrowed it in on the right drill bit, and then once he got the right drill bit, then he narrowed it in on the right time to hang out in the hole and the right depth to go into the hole. Right, Don?
Right.
And then once you did that, once you feel like you were pretty secure on all of those questions, and he was getting close, there was still some variation that you weren't totally comfortable with, right?
Yeah, most of them were really uniform. There was a couple that were a little looser, but they all seemed to be fairly tight.
Okay.
And probably tighter than
better tight. Yeah, we don't want it too tight. I have actually broken a tuning pin before. When they break off at the becket, and they just snap right off, and you have to use an easy out. It's kind of a bother to get it out. It can be done. Sometimes you mess up the plate trying to get the easy out on that. But you know, it's a pain. Anyway,
what happens if you hang out too long, or you use the wrong size bit and the hole is now too large?
Is now too large. Were there any of those on this one? So you were pretty conservative every time.
There was one that was maybe under 100 pounds, maybe 80 to 90.
Even if I think where they start getting a little iffy, like on that Kanabi. Well, we don't know because we haven't put a tuning wrench on it yet, but you can tell that there's a loose pin in there because just a move threw it out, and now you go through the chromatic scale and the note sounds completely out of place. So clearly there's a loose pin. My guess is that one would probably be foot-pounds. I haven't measured those, but maybe like 30 or 40 or 20 or somewhere in there. And so I think if you're on a brand new restringing job, if you're above 60, you're fine. Preferably above 100, but still below probably 120, 130 would probably be the max foot-pounds. I think that's what this, or inch-pounds rather. That's what this measures in. So to answer your question, what you do if that had happened, if there was one that he experimented and made a mistake, and I'd probably just for that one use a fatter pin.
Mm-hmm. Have you ever used the pins that are fatter at the bottom but have a smaller size, like a number 2 pin that's sized for like larger?
Oh, I don't think I have.
You know what I'm talking about? That
I don't. Where do you get them?
One of the supply houses. I forget, but I just
for
seen them. Yeah, well, they're meant for replacing onesies and twosies, but so that you don't have to put a larger size like at the tuning pin, but the bottom of it is larger.
Put the bottom is larger. Cool. Okay. Nice. I'll check that out. There are other options too. I mean, you can use CA glue. I hate to use that on a brand newly restrung piano. They're also little inserts, but those are more for older pianos that you're just doing a quick fix on, not a brand new restringing job. Okay, so that's probably the most important thing that Don did. Everybody, guess any questions on that? So Don he's already gone in and drilled out all of these. He found where the time is and where the depth is. I think you put a piece of tape on the drill bit.
Little depth gauge, yeah. Depth
gauge in order to determine how far to go in with the drill bit. And these pieces of tape were samples that he did. And so he was just reminding himself, I think, don't re-drill this hole.
Yeah.
Right?
Skip that one.
Skip that one. Yeah. Okay. Before we put on his back, I'll also show you this. Remember the teardown the last couple weeks that we've been doing the broadcast on the Steinway? We started filling out one of these teardown sheets. Yeah. Okay. Here's the step where we start using this. Note number 88, for example. He has these lines where the strings change sizes. So note number 88 was 31 thousandths, which I have over there. I've got 31 thousandths. That's probably all we'll use. And then it changes at note between 81 and 80, and no tied strings and no hitch pins that are where one string uses 2 hitch pins. So that makes it easy. And okay, everybody see that?
Mhm.
And he has that measured from here down to here, and then we've got bass strings that are custom made from here down to the bottom. I won't do it today, but maybe Don, if you could do this later. What I do when I start is once the piano is on its back, I get hammer shanks and put them in the hole where the next size starts.
Oh, yeah, it's great.
Otherwise, you just kind of get in a rhythm, and you keep going, and then pretty soon you use size 14 string all the way down to here, and you're like, oh, what did I just do? You've got to undo it all the way back to there. And
Don't go past it, huh?
yeah. So if you just put those hammer shanks in the hole there, and there, or wherever it happens to be, you won't do that. Okay, got to change sizes right here. I think I'm missing anything else.
Don, did you drill the holes standing up like this, or with the piano on its back?
Standing up. And I used a spoon bit, and it seemed to me that it does not. It's more forgiving as if you drill it once and it's still a little tight, because it compresses. You know, if you had a regular auger bit, it would ream it out. And you don't want to go twice on that. That spoon bit actually kind of polishes it off in there. I mean, it's only one cutting edge. It doesn't have that reaming effect of a spiral bit. And so there were some that were really quite tight, and so I'd try and ream it, and I'd test it again, and it was still tight, tighter than 100 pounds, you know, even 130, a little bit plus. And I didn't have a real next size bit I didn't want to go to any other bits, so I tried to ease them. So there's some that are right at that maximum. In fact, that's a lot of them right through the middle there. That's where they're at.
You think your drilling technique would change if you were doing it on a grand that has to be done down instead of forward?
Just different action. I don't know. I haven't tried it. You just want to line it up, and what I would do is I stuck a looser bit in there that stuck out a little ways, so that as I started, I could visually get parallel to that, because I didn't want to start up here and then it corrected me, So I wanted something sticking out that I could say, okay, I think I'm straight now. Because when you're up close, you get this weird dementia.
Right. Sure.
It's hard to know how straight you are to the board. And actually, it's not necessarily exactly to the board, but it's to the line of the holes. The holes may not be perfectly parallel to the plate there. They're supposed to be, I think. But
No, they're not.
a little bit of an angle.
Yeah, there's an angle. What is it? Like 7 or 8 degree angle.
Okay.
I think, where the tuning pins are drilled.
Well, that makes sense. That makes it so it's a little bit of an optical illusion, and to have even a drill bit sticking out, or maybe a longer hammer shank or something, if it's in there fairly tight so that it doesn't have a different angle of its own. That's why I used a drill bit. Just stuck it in there far enough that it was giving me an indicator.
Okay. So yeah, on that, the way they're supposed to be drilled, and it looks like these ones are drilled correctly. It's supposed to be drilled at a slight angle, because once you've got all that weight, all that tension pulling the bit down, that it's not supposed to be totally perpendicular. It's supposed to be up like this. So when you've got it down, the idea, I think, is that it kind of straightens it out a little bit, which gives you the coil, so that when the string comes up, it wraps around at a like the coil is tight. Whereas if you can picture, if it were up too far, then the coil, the string would come up, and then there'd be a big weird gap in the coil. If it were too far down this way, then it would want to double over on itself. And so there's again, every time I do a pin block, I've got to refresh my memory on angles and stuff like that. There's also when you drill a pin block, and this is just a point of interest. It's not supposed to be dead center in the hole. It's supposed to be slightly up. So the way to do that is I've got a set of center punches. So you find one that, I can't remember what the figure was. This is another thing that I've got to refresh every time. If you find one that's maybe, I don't know, just a size or two down, you find the one that fits this hole exactly, this larger hole of the center punch. You know what center punch is?
Mm-hmm.
It's basically just a rod that has a pokey thing in the center. So when you put it in, punch it, it gives you it shows you exactly where the center of that hole is. That's what a center punch is. So since you want it slightly towards the top, like if you, wherever that center is, you want it slightly up. So you find exactly what size this hole, you find the center punches that fits exactly in this hole of the plate, go a size or two smaller, and then bear against the top of the hole, and then punch it there. And that's where you're gonna drill. Or you want to do it actually on the drill press with a jig, so you've got your angle, and you drill right in that hole, and then move it, and then drill, and then move it, and then drill. The same feed rate. And I've heard different theories on that as well. Feed
That's
rates
awfully fast. I mean, you got one speed there, you know, variable, right?
Well, you mean on the drill press?
Yeah.
So one theory that I've heard that I took a class that was a Bolduc class. Bolduc is a guy that teaches a lot. Andre Bolduc and his son Christian Bolduc. They teach a lot at conventions, and they were saying just use the drill bit that you want. Just start out with fresh wood, use the drill bit exactly that you want to end up with. Whereas I've heard other people say, where these are like 270 something thousandth of an inch, so just over a quarter of an inch in diameter. Other people say use Jim Busby was the guy that taught me this. Use a 1/4 inch drill bit on your drill press, and don't worry about cooling it down. Don't worry about your speeds. Don't worry, just burn the heck out of that bit. Just go through, and just all you're doing is drill, drill, drill. Just make sure you got the right spot. Don't worry about burning the hole or anything like that, because you're going to go through the second time, and that's where you're going to get it to exactly the right size. You're going to take out, from 250 thousandths to 270 thousandths, or whatever, 265, or whatever, just taking off that last little 10th or 15th or 20th of an inch in the diameter. But Bolduc says no. I'm more comfortable actually with Jim's idea. It just makes more sense in my mind.
Okay.
But
Maybe if you're a master of the drill technique, then like the Bolducs.
like the Bolducs,
yeah.
That's right. Yeah, that's right.
Do you know if they use a press or they drill by hand?
I'm pretty sure they use press.
Yeah.
That cooling off the drill bit is a serious issue, though.
Yeah.
I would go, finally I was just using a damp cloth. It doesn't take long. It cools off just as fast as it heats up. But I would cool it off every single drill time, because after one, it would burn you bad. It gets, and yet a little bit of moisture on there, that evaporation goes right off, and there's not so much mass in a drill bit that it doesn't cool right back down. And the wood start smoking,
Yeah, right.
At least the one I was using, that spoon bit.
There are attachments that when you're drilling a pin block that they have, like it's a cooling. There's something. It's some chemical process. and you point it right at your drill bit. There's two little arms that are flexible arms. You point it right at your drill bit. Both of them shooting some sort of a chemical cooling system, something. And
some kind of lubricant.
it's not a. It's
like
not.
It's
Air. It's not like.
Oh, really?
Yeah, no, it's not like metal. It's not like drilling metal where you've got an actual liquid lubricant. It's just air. But there's the chemical somehow, and I don't know how it works. I've never really investigated. I've just seen people.
Sounds real Star Wars, doesn't it?
It does.
Go through a force field.
Right. Yeah. The air goes through some sort of force field and like super cools the air.
Freeze the
Somehow.
drill bit in carbonite.
Right. That's right. So the drill bit is constantly having cold air, freezing air being blown on it through this system. It's a few $100. I just haven't, I don't do enough pin blocks. I don't know. Maybe I'll get one someday.
Well, even if it saved you an hour, how many hours would it take to pay for that,
Sure. Yeah. Right. Okay.
I used that little green bulb on each one too. I didn't have the air compressor in here to spray it out, but I like the idea of squirting all the air, just pressing all the air from the back of the hole out to get all the sawdust out. So most of them should be empty, and that's another maybe a plus for using it drilling vertically. Can't do that on a grand piano. Yeah, so you still got some in there. But
Well, on a grand piano, you drill the holes all the way through.
oh, okay, so then it drops through.
Right.
See, that's just what I was thinking is with compressed air, you're blowing as much back in as you're blowing out, but I don't know.
This goes right in.
Looks like I missed some.
Okay. Okay, let's start. Let's put piano on its back this way. Those casters roll really nicely. Did you put those casters on?
Yeah.
And did you?
We had to remount the whole little
Remount it,
paper, yeah.
Yeah. That's
Those are
fine.
nice casters, but they do hang out a lot.
They do. Yeah, those roll really easily. I like that a lot. Okay, so somebody grab a piano bench. So grabbed a bunch of tools. Before we started this morning. Let's see what else I'm missing. That'll probably do it. I always like to have a blanket here to just keep my tools and sort of protect all of this stuff. And just kind of move things as I go. Okay, first thing, we're going to find the right, this is the little coil maker. First thing we're going to do is I'm going to find the right height. See how that becket is way too high?
Okay.
We're going to lower this down. So the becket is right there. All right, flush with top.
Okay.
And then tighten this down. So now it's the right spot for this particular pin. All right, then I've got to find this. This is 31 wire. Oh, Don, we need the metal. You know where that is?
Yeah.
Little insert here.
Oh, okay. There's a, yeah, that's right. Okay, got it. It's up high.
It's upside down on the screen, isn't it? Does that matter? Should I turn around or is that fine?
That's how I see it.
So it's fine.
Yeah.
Kevin, we need more of your jokes interject in the silent times.
Hold
Okay.
that for a second.
So, what did the bus driver say to the one-legged man?
You know, we've only got 2 viewers right now, so if we don't keep it exciting, we
Oh,
might
that's right.
lose one of them.
So what Don has done to this is he's polished it. And it seems like what I asked you to do was to remove
Get rid of those little grooves.
most of the grooves, but not entirely, so that we know
I could still see them, but I don't know if that was enough.
that they're. I think that's enough, because you can't really feel them, but you can see them. I mean, I guess you can feel them with your fingernail. But I think that'll be a good solid termination point. What you want is you want 1/8 of an inch diameter. This one looks, yeah, that's about 1/8 of an inch. Sometimes you don't have these. This is the termination point for the string. Sometimes you just have a little rounded edge on the plate, and so you essentially want to sand that down so that you have a good solid termination point again, which is what you've done here. And it's nice that you've been able to polish it and you have that 1/8 inch diameter that the string goes over. So we're going to nestle that back in there. It's not going to be a perfect fit, but as we go, it'll settle in to its spot.
Kind of looks like it got a little bit out of shape as I polished it.
No, it'll be fine. It'll be fine as we as we get all of the strings on it, it'll hold it down, and then we just put it in place. It'll be just right.
Want to tape it down temporarily?
No. As soon as we get the first string on, it'll be down temporarily. First thing we do is we're going to put this up through under the cable bar. Has to be in between the right bolts, of course. These are our 2 target. We're going to do these 2. That's going to be our first. So of course the string attaches here, goes down, wraps around, comes back up, and then attaches there. The next one goes here and here. It shares these 2. The string, same physical string, shares those 2. Then these 2. And then we start over. These 2, these 2, these 2, these 2, these 2. You know, everybody know what I'm talking about?
Yeah.
Okay. This little knob right here acts as a little stop. I'm going to put this through, and then put it against the stop, pull it back so that it's flush with the end right there. I'm going to use one of these little tuning pin cranks and go as I'm holding it tight with my finger there. Looks like I'm going to go a little higher. So there's once, twice, and then a little bit. We'll tighten that coil up. You go 2.5 times. And then I'm going to go slightly I have a little bit of room here. Do you see where the thread ends? I'm just going to use that as kind of my visual gauge. We'll level the tuning pins at the end just so that they're not up and down and around and everywhere. I've seen people use different jigs to mark the distance of how far they're going, and I've used that before, and it seems okay. I just kind of like it this way better, where it's where you do that after, where you level the tuning pins after. Okay, then once we're at this point, we're going to go down to the bridge. I'm going to give it a little bend there. The other end, go across the bridge. Okay, and here we're going to this hole, and you need a standard measurement. I've always used my fingers, so I'm going to put the string right at this joint right there, and I'm going to measure 3.5 fingers or so. So there's 4 fingers where the hole was right there.
Center of the hole is at the knuckle.
Was it, or the bottom of my hand?
Uh-huh.
And then let's go down. Let's go to 3.5 fingers. Okay, everybody catch that? Hold both sides because it'll shoot.
So if you have fat hands, you have to use heavier gauge wire, right?
That's right.
There are a different number of fingers.
Yeah.
Now lift that up. Go back under. So I'm going to adjust this a little bit. Try that. That in there, bring it flush. Hold it tight. And I'm trying to bisect that hole. See that? How that bracket is cut in half. If you cover it completely, it's not quite right. If you see the entire hole, that's not right either. But you can fix that later. That's not essential at this point. Then I'm going to go 2 times, 2.5 times. You can go 2.5 times the first time and 2 the second, to give yourself on the second pin, to give yourself a little bit more slack when putting that in. And then back again on the bridge, around each thing. And I know I'm done when I see just a little bit of thread up there. Now, this is kind of a tricky part. Ideally, what we want, and this is really hard to achieve, ideally what we want eventually when we've got all the strings on, is we want all of these little beckets where the thing goes into the becket goes into the becket hole, the bend goes into the hole. We want them all lining up, whether it's 12 o'clock or 1 o'clock or 9 o'clock or wherever it happens to end up. We want them to line up. That's really hard to achieve. But that's what we're shooting for.
Coil size?
No, it's just tradition.
Tradition.
That's right. That's all it is.
Is it aesthetics as well?
Yeah, it's aesthetics and, you know,
Impressing your colleagues.
impressing your colleagues.
When the PTG comes to
When
inspect your work.
When the PTG comes to inspect your work, they want
they
to
do.
see, as they do.
Knock,
they-
knock, knock. This is the PDG.
That's
Say
right.
your becket hole. Open up.
Let's
No,
see.
thanks.
That's right. PTG here to inspect. That's what they do. But we love the PTG, nonetheless. Okay, so the way to achieve that, one is you want to be consistent with your measurement. You want to be consistent with your first coil when you do your, you know, when you do your first 1, 2.5. You know, you want to be consistent with that. And like I said, you'll get into a rhythm. At this stage, so we use this thing, coil lifter, and tuning hammer. So this might be
A different angle.
I don't know how to best do this
Side.
for all.
From where I'm standing to get the sidelong view.
Okay, try that. So right now, so where it sits right now
You're gonna make him dizzy.
on this tuning pin, we've got the becket just starting the third coil, and that's what you want is you want somewhere between 3 coils and 3 3/4 coils when it's totally done. Some people like to do 4. In fact, Julio insists on 4 coils, and I do 3 to 3 3/4 coils because that's what I was taught, and that's what tradition dictates. But apparently Julio likes 4. I've even seen him do 4.5, and whatever. I don't think it really matters all that much. I'm sure that people that are advocates of 3 have their reasons that only 3 coils is sufficient. So what we've got here is we've got this where the becket sits right now. It's just barely starting the third coil. On this one, we've got 2 3/4 coils. So first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to even this one up. I'm going to lift this up, not too high, but just lift it up so that it's now going to bisect the opposite hole. And I'm going to catch this one up to the other one.
This works well for in-shop demo too. Emma's watching the screen.
Okay.
Like we're at the convention.
Oh, yeah. Good deal.
So now we've got both of them starting on their third coil.
I feel like a lot more slack on
And
that.
yeah, there's a lot. Okay, there's a lot more slack on this one. So that tells me that
Your fingers are too fat.
my fingers are too fat. So maybe my measurement should be slightly less, like 3 1/4 or so.
Sure, 3.
And it changes, by the way, as you get fatter and fatter strings, and you do bass.
Oh, that's right.
You do the bass strings, especially. Like if you measure 4 or 3.5 fingers on the bass strings, you only get 2.5 coils. because the strings are fatter.
Hmm.
Okay, so I think the instinct at this point is to go further with this one that has more slack, but it's the opposite. You want to go with this one to kind of pull this bend a little bit further, kind of give it a head start. So I'm going to lift that coil a little bit.
You don't split the difference.
Well, that's, I mean, you want them to line up. You want them to even it out, and that's how you do it. So you want to start with the one that's tighter already. And by the way, I'm going to push the Beckett into the Beckett hole as it starts to tighten up. So I'm going to go, I don't know, I just went a little bit more than a quarter turn. And so maybe I'll go a little bit more. And I'm going to push that Beckett into the hole. Okay, so now we've got 3.5 coils on this one. We'll tighten up those coils. It's really important that those coils be nice and tight, bisecting the other hole, but there's not enough tension right now to tighten them. Once all this slack is taken up, we'll have plenty. We'll have plenty of tension to tighten them up. We'll go here, pick up some of that slack. Go back on this one, give it even more of a head start, pull that coil tight. Okay, now I'm at like 3 3/4 on that one. And 3.5 or 3 3.25 on this one. Push that Beckett in the hole. It's very important that Beckett be pushed all the way into the hole. Okay, I'm pretty close. Right now, the top one is at this angle, and the bottom one is about at that angle. So they're close. We've got enough tension that we've at least got something. I mean, we've got nowhere near enough tension, but we've got some. Then I'm going to try and even things out a little bit. Make sure those Beckets are tight. Now I'm going to catch, since this one is behind a little bit, I'm going to catch this one up.
Viewers at home, put on your 3D glasses.
That's right. So the only thing missing, well, there are a couple things missing. There are a couple things missing here. One is the spacing here, and spacing here. We've also got to tighten those coils. Let's use a screwdriver. Will you grab me a flathead screwdriver? Mm-hmm. And this is something also that that is sacrilegious to tradition.
How can we do that?
What's that?
How can we do that?
How can we do something that's sacrilegious? I do it a lot. And specifically what I'm talking about is, thank you.
You iconoclast, you.
I know. It's awful. You're never ever supposed to use steel on this wire, but I just don't like brass. It just doesn't seem to do as good a job. So I like to manipulate the strings a little
Doesn't
bit.
show the string who's boss.
That's right. Exactly.
Probably using steel.
Yeah, the
Hardness factor.
the
You
hardness.
can nick the string, and you can, in the treble especially, you can get false beats that way.
Oh, really?
So got
So basically, they're not touching all the way.
yeah, and we'll use this thing here as kind of a gauge. See that? On the other end of the string lifter is that spacer. So rather than using the spacer, I just kind of put it in here and twisted it so they've got the strings in the right spot, and kind of went under here and pushed them over so they seem about right.
You're trying to find the grooves in the copper bar and the rod.
Yeah, that's right. Exactly. Okay, now I'm going to.
There's like grooves underneath the copper bar to guide it and where it's proper string position.
I don't know. I would assume so. Are there, Don? Grooves under there?
I think.
Was it smooth?
Yeah.
Okay.
Too old for grooves.
Now,
Too hard. Copper bar steel, isn't it?
yeah. Now I'm just gonna knock the coil down a little bit. You don't want to go too far. Again, you want to bisect the hole, because if you've got half a revolution, if it goes in the Beckett hole, then you've got half a revolution around the tuning pin. Now it should cover half the hole, right? So since you've got 180 degrees around, then if you want that string totally perpendicular to the pin, if it's covering half the hole, that tells you that it's perpendicular in its coil. If it's covering the entire hole, then it's slightly angled up around this way, and it's not totally perpendicular. Same with the other direction.
You want both sides of the hole to be covered the same way.
Yeah. So now what I've got here is I've got 3 3/4 coils. On this one anyway, the coil is tight. And by the way, you want to do this at this stage in the game. You don't want to do this later. It's just too much of a bother to do it later. As tempting as it is to move on to the next string, it's just much easier to do at this stage to tighten things up. It's possible later. So that actually brings up a good point when doing the string lifting. I said earlier that I want you to shoot for half the hole as you're pulling the coil tight. I want to cover half the hole. Cover a little bit more of the hole, because later on you're going to be knocking it down to half. And if you cover half and you have to end up knocking it down to tighten the coil, then you'll be below the half hole point. You follow that okay? All right. Then we do this one. This one is still pretty loose. And yeah, it looks good because you see how loose that coil is? See how there's some space there? That's what I want at this stage, because this coil is totally covered. So that when I knock this down with the screwdriver, it'll tighten the coil. Okay, now I can see a little bit of the that hole peeking through. Go a little bit more. Okay. So there's the first one. And we don't have it up to pitch yet. We still have a lot of a long ways to go on tightness, but really all that means that'll be like just barely. It'll probably be moving the tuning hammer from here to there, and it'll be totally tight. So we're not turning it much. Everybody that does this for the first time seems to break a few strings because they want to get it tight, and they keep tightening and don't know when to stop. What else? What else am I missing? Got the right tuning pin height. We've got some of the thread still showing, so that we know that later on, when we sight down all of the tuning pins, we can see, okay, there's a high one. Let's lower that one down. No, that one's the highest. Let's lower that one. Now that one's the highest. And we just keep doing that. Just keep lowering. You can't raise them up, but you can lower them down. So at the end, when you're sighting it, you just lower down the highest 5 or 10 or 20 or 30, however many you have to do, until you're really comfortable with a nice straight. And that again is just tradition and aesthetics, and it's just taking pride in a job well done. And you've got tuning pins that are all the right height. So
Is there any necessity of starting from one side of the pin or the other as far as putting it through because you can see where the threads end, and there's about almost 1/8 of an inch gap there. So if you always start it on one side, then when you're sighting them, they'll look more uniform. They'll all be. That's assuming that they all start at the same point, but they maybe don't. I don't know.
that's a really good question, Don. I've never
See, these don't.
thought about that.
These don't. This one ends over there, and this ends more right here in the pin. So maybe that's a moot point. You just go where you go. But by looking at where the threads are on the bottom, does not guarantee uniformity of height. Sighting along the top of the pins is the only way to guarantee uniformity of height.
I never thought about that.
I noticed those threads are put on with about 4 lines in it, and instead of one at a time. They don't spin it 100 times; they spin it 25 times or whatever.
With 4 cutters. Yeah, I've never thought about that. Although the PTG would appreciate that level of precision.
Yes.
Well, you could probably
That level of
always
obsession.
go to the side of the hole where the ends are closest. Try and line up wherever that ends. Say that's my entry hole.
Okay,
Yes.
I like that idea. I think it's a great idea.
This adds 4 hours and $2,500 to your resale price.
Exactly.
But it's quality.
You can totally sell a customer on that one.
There's no wrong on that.
Yeah, I'm sure. This is the last one, the last step that we'll do. So we'll tighten up these flies. I'm going counterclockwise to kind of tighten things, kind of bring energy. If the coils aren't totally tight, wrapped around, this sort of knocks them in and like
Sort of seats it
Smash
flush
them
against
up,
the side of the pin.
flush against the side of the pin. Yeah. I usually do it 100 revolutions when I'm installing a new string. Frankly, if we're going to be doing all of the tuning pins, probably won't do it 100 revolutions. Maybe do it, I don't know, 30 or 40 or 20. I don't know. Okay. And that,
Can you tell when you've not done enough?
yeah. Well, okay, when you've got a new string on and you tune it up to pitch and you do it 100 times, you won't be able to see that string go any more flat, go any flatter. When you do it 10 times, 20 times, you're still knocking some energy, and you can see as you play it. If you do it 10 times, it'll have flattened a little bit. If you do it another 20 or 30 or 40 or 50 times, it'll have gone even flatter. You do another 30 or 40, you're up to approximately 100 or so. It'll flatten a little bit, and if you keep going, it won't really.
You're talking about
do
the
any more.
flatness between the pin and the copper bar, or were you looking for?
You're tightening it around the tuning pin.
Right.
Oh,
Where's this flatness?
oh, pitch. The pitch.
Oh, okay.
Sorry. Good.
Because I was,
Question. You were thinking physical flatness.
yeah, I was thinking before, like you've got enough tension on the string
Okay.
for that curve to be taken out, but
Perfect.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's the pitch. It flattens. And the amount that it flattens varies depending on where you are on the piano, but it's approximately 50 cents that it'll flatten.
can you pluck it as you do it? Like, bing, bing,
Yeah.
bing?
And you can hear it.
Mhm.
You can hear it flatten. Like it's not just a few cents that the human ear can't perceive.
Mm.
It's enough that you, as you do it, you can hear it come down about 50 cents or so.
Mm.
Okay, why don't we do? Let's do one more. I'll do one more as an example. Maybe I'll talk less and just do more, and then maybe Don, you can try one on the samples, on the little models, and try one then on the real piano. Okay. First thing, put the string under. Remove this tape because this is my target hole. And that tape, remember, was there just to tell you not to drill because that was one of your samples. Get a tuning pin.
You want to start marking the size changes?
Oh, sure.
I can put those in.
Yeah, that'd be great. Put that in, put it against the stop, bring it back so that it's flush with the end or slightly out, ever so slightly, because as you wind it, it'll back out. And now I'm going to go 2.5, right? So I'm going to start, it doesn't really matter where you start as long as you go 2.5. So there's 1, 2.5. That's about where I ended up, and remember it's going to be higher than the neighbors because we're going to go around another 3/4 of a turn or so, which is going to force it down into the pin block a little more. Down, wrap around. Now I'm on the next one. Now, which one's my target hole?
Bottom.
Right. So I'm going to put my finger there on the bottom. I'm going to go to 3.5 fingers, which is right about there. I'm going to go a little bit less, ever so slightly less than 3.5. Maybe I'll work my way down. Since this was the full 3 3/4 revolutions on the tuning pin, maybe I'll back it off, see if I can go ever so slightly less and back it off so it's not 3 3/4, but maybe I'll aim for 3.5, something like that. Okay, I gotta take this back off, under cable bar again. Be careful that you don't scratch the plate. This plate is actually going to be very forgiving on scratching because it's not finished in gold paint. So that's easy. Now I'm going to go one, 2, maybe I'll go 2 1/4. I think last time I did 2, and that seemed slightly too much slack. So I'll try 2 1/4 that time. bridge around the pitch pin, other side of the bridge, and that looks perfect. It'll give me more slack as I go down.
Okay. As much slack as before.
Yeah, not as much slack as before. Yeah. Okay, now which one is the one that I start on?
The upper one? Oh, the one with the one with less slack.
With less slack, that's right.
Less slack.
And I'm going to lift that intentionally too high because it's going to go down. Just make sure you don't double over. Sometimes if you do the one with, if you pull up too much, it'll make the coil double over on itself, which is not the end of the world, but it's, you know, another thing you've got to fix. Remember to tighten up that coil. As I've got a little bit of tension on there, that's probably enough that if I push that back into the hole, it'll now stay. If you've got too much, like this has way too much slack, if I push this into the hole, it'll just pop right back out again.
It will laugh in your face.
It'll laugh in your face. Yes, it will.
Come to you a second at a time.
Push that over so that's kind of spaced. Maybe I'll give that just a little bit more. And you can see that on this side it started to tighten up a little bit. And this one I did from, I think, this angle. And this one, there's not really the space to do it any other than this one. So I'm going to do this one left-handed on the tuning hammer. And by the way, I really like the tension, the torque on these. It feels really, really tight. I like that a lot, but it's not so ridiculously tight that it would be a pain to tune. And that's tightening up nicely. See if there's enough tension on there. I don't know. Let's tighten that up a little bit. It could be tighter, but at least it got it started. And this doesn't look totally straight, but it will in a minute. Okay, now I've got the becket on this one is at that angle. So over here, becket on this one is at this angle. So from where I'm looking, this one is about 8 o'clock. This one is about 4 o'clock. So I'm going to catch this one up maybe to 6 o'clock. Maybe a little more, 6:30. So now this one, even though they're not tight enough to give you a nice pitch, you can still hear a pitch. And this one's a higher pitch than this one. So this one is looser. So I'm going to keep going because it's looser. Did you see how little I moved that? I moved it from like 6:30 to 7, and already it's way higher pitch, and it's starting to get in that range of something that sounds musical, as opposed to these that don't even sound musical. They're tight. You can't push them down, but they're not musical yet. And that's about the range that you want to be in. When they start to get musical, now you're probably going a little bit too far. Be done. Yeah, be done. Yeah, we'll bring them up to pitch later. But you know, it's starting to get to the musical point, but it's not as high as it's going to be. Let's just leave that. We'll get up to pitch after when all the strings are off. But on the other side, if it's not kind of headed towards musicalness, then there might not be quite enough tension. So you've got to find that medium ground. Okay, let's see. And by the way, now from a Beckett standpoint, like they're pretty close to where they're going to end up. But now this one, these are at 3.5, whereas these were at more like 3 3/4. So either we'll redo this first one, or we'll just leave it. I don't know. We'll see. Depends on.
Sacrilegious.
It would be sacrilegious, so we might redo them. It would be a shame, wouldn't it?
Knock, knock, knock. How many coils do you have on that pin?
So, the Gestapo. Gestapo. No, I'm. If you're a PTG person watching this at home, know that I'm a huge fan of the PTG.
You're vice president of the PTG.
I'm vice president of
Local.
the PTG, the local chapter, and I'm a huge fan, huge supporter, and
We allow a lot of our success and training.
Pledge
in
allegiance to
PTG.
the guild.
I pledge allegiance to the guild.
Piano Technicians of America.
Thank you. I'm a big supporter and fan of the guild,
We'll see you at the convention.
and I'm just joking around. This is purely
We tease them because we love them so
we
much.
tease them because we love them. Thank you, Gavin.
It's our culture.
Like a close brother.
Well, and I mean, there's a like, I kind of give all of these kinds of ticky-tacky little details. I give people a hard time for doing them, but I strive to do them myself. And I'm not really sure like where the line is between. It's important. It's important. Yes, you want your work to look nice. You want to take pride in your work. You want it to look good. And I'm really not sure like what is tradition and what is just for aesthetics and just for pride and what is actual functionality. Like tight coils, yes, that looks good, but that is functionality also. That is absolutely functional. If they're not tight, there's some sort of there's a possibility that you'll have tuning stability issues. Whereas if you tight coils, those coils aren't going anywhere. They're nice and tight against each other. Your tuning is going to be really stable.
Well, I think the reason is because as you get more coils around the pin, then that exponentially increases the friction around the pin. Like if you're holding a bowl by a rope and you wrap it around a tree, the more times you wrap it, the more that bowl is going to stay put. So, the next level of that is making sure that the Beckett holes are lined up and so that they're consistent and that kind of thing. So, I mean, there's a reason why people get obsessive about it, but as you say, there's a line between what's really necessary and what's just impressive to our colleagues. But that line, as you say, changes depending on economics and time and the kind of piano you're working on.
That's right.
And, just
that's right.
make a judgment call every time.
This is a rebuild. This I would consider to be a rebuild, and so we've got a high standard right there. But at the same time, there are certain things like the bridge, for example. We did not recap the bridge. That was not in the budget, and I think it's perfectly sufficient. We've got some some epoxy on the bridge where we've put that in there, and that's okay. That's not going to affect things. If this were a Steinway piano that we were intending on selling for tens of thousands of dollars, then that wouldn't fly. So like you said, Gavin, that line changes. You make a judgment call every time. Okay, back to restringing. And we have about 13 minutes total left. So let's finish this up. Right now I'm at 6:30, 7 o'clock on this one. I'm at 7 o'clock, good solid 7 o'clock on this one, but this one's already tight. So if I were to tighten it anymore, I run the risk of breaking it. Like if I wanted to catch this 6:30 up to the 7, I run the risk of breaking it. So what I'm actually going to do is I'm going to back this one off a little bit.
so that now this one is way loose. And I'm going to catch it up that way. Now they're caught up. Close to caught up. All right, now this one, and yeah, now they're both at about 7 o'clock. This one's a lot looser than that one. So do you see how there's kind of a give and take? So and they're still within, like I would say if they were all within, say one clock face, what is that?
Half hour either side.
Half an hour either side. Perfect way to put it. That's within I think what a high level rebuilder would pass. So the only thing now is to tighten coils up and down, and tighten coils around the pin. So remember that one's too high. Actually, that went too low now.
So are you comparing all the pins against each other where the beckets are, or just the two linked ones?
Both, which adds another dimension for all of the beckets to be.
But more importantly, the two paired ones, or not necessarily?
Both.
This is where you might want to use this guy.
Yeah, let's try that. I don't know if this will work or not. I've had mixed results with this. And it worked. Thank you, Gavin. That was much better than loosening it. Now I'm going to go down. My becket hole should be right about there on both of them. And it's covering on both of them, so I'm going to tap that down. Now it's peeking through. Now it's halfway exposed. And this one's already pretty much halfway exposed. Let me try this. And this one as well. Okay, now that hole is halfway exposed. You can push that. Make sure that becket is really tight in the hole. You can use vice grips on this. That gives you the compound action so that you really push that becket hard into the hole. Now, oh yeah. Let up a little higher so it starts to get musical. What's that?
Yeah, it's at least 20 cents.
Okay. Got two of them started.
So why do you only do 30, 40 revolutions when you're reading, restringing everything?
Oh, just time.
Well, also because when you chip tune, you're bringing it up quite a bit more than when you tune
That's right.
an already strung piano.
That's
Whereas if you're replacing one string, then you're matching it to the other pins that are already there.
And so the process of tuning everything will do a lot.
Score the top of that other
Yeah,
string, or is that, how does that
but
affect
you're not going to get it all done right now. So you just do it a little bit.
You're kind of leaving some slack.
Yeah,
But it's smooth, there's
you're
not
making
actually
it flush, but you're not
scoring
getting
it,
all
it's
of it.
wearing, it's just flushing wear on it.
Maybe a little bit. Let's
What you're doing is you're stretching the coil lengthwise, like longitudinally the string stretches as you do that.
Now I'm just going to kind of even these strings out visually. But you want to keep keep it kind of as you go. Keep them nice and equidistant from each other. This one seems to be over too far to the side. I think this whole rod needs to be tapped that way, because you want those strings to be pretty straight line. If I close one eye, I can see this string is a pretty straight line to the first angle bend that way. Even though it kind of comes up and down here, it's a pretty straight line on all those, so you want to pay attention to that. Okay, we only have 7 minutes. If you want to tap the other one down. Is that moving, Don?
Yeah.
It's coming.
That seam good? Move this over. Just need to- Okay, look good.
Okay, Don, do you want to try one on the jig?
Yeah.
Okay, jigs are right over there to the right of the sink. Let's put this down. And you can use these tuning pins that. Actually, I don't know what the hole size is on those.
Pretty small. I don't know.
Oh, not that jig.
That's not it.
No. I'll grab one. Maybe it's on the way here. Oh, I see it.
Too many jigs. Whole box full of jigs, and I picked the board.
Okay. Anybody else want to try one?
I'll do it.
Anybody else? Okay, Don, let's start just by taking these strings off. Loosen all these. Okay, Don, don't you start by grabbing, well, have a seat.
Can I just use another pen to do it
Yeah, yeah, you can use another pen. And then you can take it off the coil and put it back on one of those, so it won't be exact.
And then you want you just say that each side where it ends and hook it through, and then you just barely showing. You had an interesting thing. I don't know how you held it, but you had a tension point. I like that.
Is it flush? Yep, it's flush.
Fairly flush. It's poking out just a tad. And then you go clockwise, starting at microconda.
And watch your coils, make sure you're not overlapping.
So you want it to go underneath?
Yep.
And then pull up.
As the wire coils on, like it'll force the pin upwards a little bit.
Oh, I see. Okay, yeah, good. Okay, there's 2.
Yeah, 2.5, right?
So I'm to about there. Now I've gone the turns, but from where it started.
Yeah, that's good.
Like it? Okay, now if we
Now
can.
you can take it off the coil.
Like that. Now, if I start just right here.
Okay. Do you want to give? You want to tell them how to finish it up, or should we just, yeah, just end it? Okay. Okay. So we gotta end the broadcast right now. So thanks for watching. Every Mountain Time, 6 a.m. Wednesday morning. We'll do something different, whatever we happen to be working on in the shop at the time. Come join us.
And have some.